Hi everybody, my name is Gretchen and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit today about our perception of mistakes and how we can best use our negative feelings to learn something about ourselves and help us have a happier outlook and a more pleasant future. So, what I do right now in my career is I am a tattoo artist, and I actually came upon this career in a little bit of a roundabout way, kind of an unexpected way, and I couldn't be happier for the experiences that I've had that have led me to this point. But there were definitely moments along the way where I felt really disappointed about the immediate things that were happening to me. So, when I got out of high school and I started going to college, I knew I wanted to pursue art. And I began by going for my Bachelor's of Fine Arts, and then I progressed to the master's program, and I earned my master's, and then I started teaching at a college level, not in fine art, but in fashion marketing, which was surprising to me, but it was enormously fulfilling. I really loved working with students and helping them find things that they were passionate about, and I liked the one-on-one with individual students, and I learned a lot while I was there. I learned a lot about fashion, and I learned a lot about how to be a decent teacher, which was really enjoyable. And it was a very fulfilling job, but it was also incredibly exhausting because if you've ever done any teaching, even on a small scale, there's so much prep work that goes into it beforehand, and there's a lot of follow-up afterwards. And I really did love it, and I would have stayed with that particular job for as long as they would have kept me. But when I found out I was expecting my son, I was laid off from that job, and obviously initially I was really disappointed. I was very sad, and I felt really sorry for myself. Um, but pretty quickly I felt like I was ready to move on to the next phase of my life, the next thing that was coming up. And I went through a couple of other jobs before I landed at tattooing. I worked for a company in Philadelphia, working in their fashion and textile design department, and I thought I might want to be a textile designer. And I really would have enjoyed that as well. And then after I had my daughter, I started speaking to an old friend who got me excited about the idea of tattooing. I thought I didn't have enough tattoos to be a good tattoo artist, so I had put the idea out of my head, but when she encouraged me, I felt ready to do it, and I took to it really, really quickly. It was just learning a new tool and starting to design on skin instead of on fabrics, and I absolutely love it. I love the one-on-one, again, with customers, collaborating with them to create something really unique, and making them feel beautiful. So I really love the job, and it's the right thing for me right now because I can kind of make my own schedule and still spend a lot of time at home with my kids. Um, and that, I think, is a good example of what I call big picture optimism, or um, yeah, just thinking of like the big plan that the universe kind of has for you. That's been a place that is fairly easy for me to be optimistic. I know that's not the case for everyone, um, but small picture day to day optimism has been more of a challenge for me, and it's been something that I've struggled with throughout my life, and I've tried to teach myself little tricks and, keep a gratitude journal and make sure that I'm changing some of my language when I talk to people. If I find that I say I'm sorry over and over and over again, especially to the same person, I'll try to change that to thank you when it's appropriate. But those day-to-day places where you find yourself not being optimistic can be more difficult to overcome because they're habitual. They're habits, and they're not necessarily philosophies. They're not something that you believe in your heart. So all throughout my life, whether it was in grade school learning a new language, or the new language is actually a really good example. I started to try to learn French when I was in fourth grade, and I never wanted to try to speak it in front of people because I was afraid of messing up. And when I did mess up, I felt this really deep sickening embarrassment. But the thing that I kind of got from feeling that embarrassment and remembering as an adult that embarrassment is that I feel I have a deeper sense of empathy toward people when they're in embarrassing moments. I think I can kind of feel what they're going through and reach out to them in a way that maybe doesn't make them feel judged. So that can be one of those places where you can talk yourself through feelings of guilt or embarrassment and see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel and know that that nasty feeling, as gross as it feels in the exact moment, is a tool. It's teaching you something. It's helping you become a better friend, a better listener, and hopefully a better person down the line. So I still struggle with it a little bit. I have that feeling where if I can't draw something the way I see it in my head, I get mad at myself, and if I don't get the steps right away in dance class, I feel not good enough. But if you try to let go of that part of your mind, that voice that's telling you you should know everything at the beginning, you can be a lot happier in your daily life and in your day-to-day practices. So if you can enjoy the process, if you can love the feeling of learning, then every bad feeling that you have, and I don't even want to call them bad, but every emotion that you have that we've come to perceive as negative can be a teaching tool. It can be something that can help you be a more understanding person, a more empathic person, a more open-minded person, and all of those things will make people around you feel gratitude. It'll make them feel love, but it'll also make you feel like more of a fulfilled person, or more confident, more comfortable in your own skin, and more like you are contributing something to the greater good and the people around you. And at the end of the day, there is no better feeling than thinking that you have reached somebody in that way. So I wanted to lead us in a little art exercise that I used to take my students through, and when I was in school I used to have to do it, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And my students all hated it when I made them do this too, but I think it has a lot of value in it, and as long as you are comfortable with what you might think of as an ugly drawing, making an ugly drawing, there's a lot of beauty that you can find in this process. I'm going to lead you in a blind contour study. So blind contour is a pretty simple activity that helps you learn how to observe and takes you away from any expectations that you have of your drawing. When you do a drawing on plain white paper, if you start out, you might have a plan for where things are going to go on the page, or how you're going to lay things out, and how you're going to make the picture look really beautiful. And while that's a really great end result, it doesn't really teach you too much when it comes to new things. And one of the hardest things to teach as an art instructor is observing, getting students to look more at the model or the still life in the center of the room than they do at their paper is a really difficult challenge, because a lot of students really want to make that paper look beautiful, so they put all their energy on the paper when their paper isn't telling them what the model looks like. The model is the only thing that can tell them what the model looks like. So the idea behind a blind contour is that you're not permitted to look at your paper while you're drawing. So if I was to draw the side of my hand in a blind contour study, I would pretend that my pen point and my pupil are tethered together, and as my eye runs down the side of my fingers, it follows the shape that my fingers create, and my pen makes those lines on the paper. And you would think that would give you a really honest representation of what your hand actually looks like, and it kind of does, but the proportions are always a little bit screwy, and things are sometimes in the wrong place, especially if you're doing a blind contour study and you're following the edge of your fingers, and then you're like, oh, I want to get into the details of that knuckle. The knuckle's not going to end up being in the correct place anatomically on your paper, but as long as you're okay with that, your eye is going to teach you so much if you allow your hand to do something that you might think is ugly. So right now, I'm going to get my face kind of close to the camera And I'm going to try to do a little blind contour study of the edge of my own face with my eye and maybe the edge of my nose, whatever I can get into without looking at my paper. And I might be able to talk to you while I'm doing it, and I might not. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm going to start right now and just kind of use my eye to tell my pencil what it should be doing. And I'm not going to let my expectations of what the drawing should look like interfere with the shapes I'm making on the paper. And right now I'm working on my eyebrow. It's a little bit difficult to talk while you do this. And I'm sorry if this part is a little bit boring. One of the things that I'm not doing right now that really does help you get a little bit more out of it, and I would suggest that you do it even though I'm totally not doing it right now, is try not to lift your pen off of the paper, because it will give you more of a consistent line. So if you're following the edge of your nose and you have to get up to your eye, just kind of soften how hard you're touching down and then move it up to where your eye is. Now I'm on my mouth, so I will be quiet for a second. Okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this because it's super creepy. So here's what I ended up with. It's not especially pretty in terms of looking like a human being's face, but there are a couple of little things that if I take the time to really look at them, I think that might be the most accurate line for the meeting of my two lips that I've ever accomplished in my self-portrait. This, we got like 3 little shine circles in the pupil, and we got the eyelash line and the lid line totally crossing each other. So, you know, drink that in, that like creepy self-portrait, some bangs, the fattest eyebrow in the world. And when you make your own drawing, try to really stare at it for a little while and see if there are any moments in it that you feel you did a really excellent job of observing and you really caught a likeness in your own face. Or if you're not comfortable doing a blind contour of your face because that's sometimes a little imposing, maybe you could start out with a vase of flowers that you have around the house, or really just anything, any object that has, try to pick something that has some like nice irregular lines to it. Like if I was doing the throw pillows behind me, you could kind of trace like the wrinkles and stuff. The nice thing about not looking at what your hand is doing is that it will always teach you something that your hand and the paper together cannot teach you alone, that you can only really get from looking at the source. And even though the result is imperfect, it is perfect because this is just an exercise. The point of this isn't to have a gorgeous drawing at the end. Just like the point of any kind of practice isn't to do it perfectly the first time, it's to exercise something. It's to get your muscles used to the dance moves that you're trying to do. It's to get your fine motor skills down so that your hand can create certain shapes. Everything is a practice. Everything in art is a practice. And you will learn and unlearn things. Your body will allow you to do things, and then sometimes it won't allow you to do things, and you have to learn a different way to go about something. But the more comfortable you are with the learning process, the happier you can be in the long run, because you really will embody all of the things that make being a human really perfectly imperfect. I hope you enjoyed our little activity, and I hope you enjoy blind contour studies. Even though they're not necessarily very popular, I think there's a lot of fun that can be had there. Thanks.